his life. However, the friend also secretly worried that Susan had a very strong personality and sometimes influenced Ricky in ways he did not even realize. The friend looked closer at the bandage and asked for the real story behind the injury. Ricky smiled sheepishly and explained that he, along with Corey and Jacob, had been trying out a new sport called rollerblade skiing. He said they were having a fantastic time flying along the pavement when they suddenly hit a rough patch of gravel and took a hard tumble. He noted that Jacob had taken the worst of the fall and it was a chaotic moment. Ricky joked that they should not even be allowed to put gravel near paving because it was terrible for rollerblade skiing. The friend laughed and asked where they had even found rollerblades in the first place. The friend playfully accused Ricky of borrowing them without permission. Ricky quickly defended himself and said they had legitimately acquired them from a brand new store called I Read Everything. Everyone agreed that it was a very clever name for a store. Later that day, Ricky's daughter Trinity came to visit and noticed the bandages. She asked her father what had really happened the previous night. She suspected that the rollerblade story was just a silly excuse to cover up a more adventurous mishap. Ricky tried to stick to his story about the gravel, but Trinity pressed him for the honest truth. Ricky took a deep breath and decided it was time to be completely honest with his family. He gathered his loved ones around and sincerely apologized. He confessed that he had been keeping a secret from them for the entire summer. He admitted that he was not actually upgrading his small engine repair certification and he was not taking the crane operator's course he had mentioned before. Instead, he had been secretly growing his own botanical plants down in the woods. Trinity looked at him with a mixture of surprise and concern and reminded him that he had promised to stay out of trouble. Ricky nodded and expressed his deep regret, but also shared how proud he was of the beautiful garden he had cultivated. He explained that he had developed a special new variety of plants with the help of a professional grower. He described the impressive irrigation system and the 75 beautiful plants that had grown quite tall. He told them about the lucrative business deal he had arranged and how close he was to finally retiring and providing a wonderful life for his family. He admitted that his plan had unfortunately fallen apart the previous night when the rival group took his harvest. He took full responsibility for bringing Jacob and Corey along and apologized for putting them in a stressful situation. Trinity was frustrated that he had involved her husband in such a risky venture. Ricky tried to explain that Jacob had volunteered to help, but he understood her anger. He promised his family that he was ready to move on from that disappointment and focus on a brighter future. Trinity asked if the big announcement he was planning had something to do with the failed business deal. Ricky quickly shook his head and assured her that the big announcement was something totally different and much more positive than a simple business transaction. Trinity was skeptical, but Ricky insisted that the upcoming news was going to be monumental. He told everyone that the large order of beverages from Bubbles was still completely necessary because the celebration was going to be spectacular. While Ricky was planning his grand gesture, Jim and Randy were experiencing a momentous day of their own. They were finally being released from their temporary confinement at the local precinct. They stepped out into the bright sunlight and felt the warm embrace of freedom. Jim looked at Randy and expressed his gratitude for their strong bond. He said that their time away had helped them grow closer than they had ever been before. He declared his deep love for his companion and looked forward to starting fresh. A local officer named Ted approached them with a serious expression. Ted informed them that there was a large sum of $400,000 from a previous incident that was supposed to be locked away in an evidence room forever. Ted explained that he had decided to use those funds to purchase much-needed new computers and forensic equipment for the police station to better serve the community. Ted then handed Jim and Randy a generous envelope containing $50,000. He explained that it was a gift to help them get back on their feet under the condition that they move forward peacefully and leave the past behind. Jim and Randy were incredibly thankful for the fresh start. They promised Ted that they would use the money wisely and never cause any more trouble. As they walked away, Jim smiled at Randy and suggested that this money could be the answer to all of their problems. He thought they could use a portion of it to make peace with Julian and finally wipe the slate clean. Randy agreed that it was a wonderful idea to mend old friendships and create a harmonious environment in the park. They decided to keep the details of their new fortune a secret and use it to build a comfortable and peaceful life together. Back at the trailer park, Ricky was proudly showing off the new additions to his home. He had worked hard to build a comfortable living space with a nice kitchen setup and a cozy bedroom with a flat-screen television. He was especially proud of the upstairs patio he had constructed. It featured comfortable recliners and a nice lamp that he had made himself. He even built a small stool for Jacob to use. Corey and Jacob were very impressed with the craftsmanship and told Ricky that the deck was absolutely incredible. Ricky thanked them for the compliments, but his mind was focused on his upcoming big announcement. He knew he needed something truly spectacular to impress Susan and the rest of the neighborhood. He asked Corey and Jacob for their creative ideas. Jacob suggested that Ricky could announce he was running for a high political office like the president of the country. Ricky laughed and said that was a brilliant but entirely unbelievable idea. Corey suggested arriving in a large dump truck to make a grand entrance. Ricky dismissed that idea and asked for something more romantic and exotic like a rare snow tiger. He quickly realized that finding a snow tiger locally would be impossible. He asked the boys to think of a large impressive animal that lived on a farm and ate grass. Corey guessed a spider, but Ricky corrected him and said spiders have many legs and do not fit the description. Finally, Jacob guessed a horse and Ricky beamed with excitement. Ricky thought a beautiful horse was the perfect romantic gift for Susan. Corey agreed and said it would make the engagement announcement incredibly special. They briefly considered putting a fake horn on the horse to make it look like a magical creature, but Ricky wisely decided that a regular beautiful horse was more than enough. He felt that this grand gesture would truly show Susan how much he loved and appreciated her. The time for the big party finally arrived. The park was filled with cheerful music and happy neighbors. Ricky stood before the crowd and thanked everyone for coming. He asked how everyone was doing and the crowd cheered in response. Ricky announced that today was a monumental occasion. He signaled to Corey and Jacob to bring out the surprise. The boys carefully led a large beautiful horse into the center of the gathering. The horse had a lovely pink blanket draped over its back. The crowd gasped in amazement. Bubbles looked at the horse in disbelief and asked Ricky if this was really his big announcement. Ricky smiled proudly and declared that he was giving this beautiful horse to the love of his life. He announced to the entire neighborhood that he was going to ask Susan to marry him. Julian and Bubbles were shocked by the grand gesture. Bubbles pulled Ricky aside and gently suggested that a horse might be a bit too extravagant for an engagement present. He reminded Ricky that true love did not require massive gifts and that Susan would love him just for being himself. Ricky listened to his friends, but he truly felt that the grand gesture was necessary to show the depth of his devotion. He believed that their strong bond could overcome any minor arguments they had experienced in the past. Just as Ricky was preparing to propose, Susan arrived at the party. However, instead of being thrilled, she appeared very upset. A complex misunderstanding had occurred earlier in the week regarding a medical appointment and some confusing paperwork. Susan mistakenly believed that Ricky had been unfaithful to her. She confronted him in front of the crowd and loudly accused him of cheating. Ricky was completely caught off guard and desperately tried to explain that it was a massive misunderstanding and that he had been completely loyal to her. He insisted that he loved her and was just about to ask her to marry him. The argument escalated quickly as emotions ran high. Susan expressed her frustration with Ricky's lifestyle and his past mistakes. She told him that they were entirely incompatible and that she needed to move on with her life. Ricky felt his heart break as he realized that the relationship was truly over. He tried to defend himself, but Susan had already made up her mind. She turned and walked away, leaving Ricky standing alone next to the beautiful horse. Julian and Bubbles quickly stepped in to comfort their heartbroken friend. They gently told Ricky to let her go and assured him that everything happens for a reason. They suggested that perhaps it was for the best and that he would eventually find someone who truly understood and appreciated him. They offered to spend the evening with him to help ease the pain of the breakup. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere in the park shifted from celebration to quiet reflection. Bubbles looked at his two best friends and realized that they were all standing at a major crossroads in their lives. He asked for their attention and spoke from the bottom of his heart.